Well, I just sold it all. I sold my entire position in a stock that I've been discussing over the past few months that I was extremely bullish on. But before I share exactly what stock I sold, I need to preface this video with a reminder. Just because I sold this stock does not mean that I'm no longer bullish on the company, and it also doesn't mean that you should be selling this stock too if it's in your portfolio. So in this video, I'll be explaining exactly why I decided to sell this stock and what I decided to do with the proceeds. So as always, do me a huge favor and smash the like button on this video to help support my channel. Also, we're almost at 30,000 subscribers, so please consider subscribing if you have not done so already. Finally, I also wanted to let you know my community of investors knew right away when I sold this stock and what I did with the proceeds and also my reasoning behind all of these moves. So if you do want to join my Discord community of investors for only $1 in your first month, make sure to click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Anyways, with that said, let's jump straight into the video. Alright, so the stock I decided to sell out of completely over the past week is Suncor Energy with ticker symbol SU.TO. Suncor has been on a huge rally lately, and I'll explain exactly why I decided to sell the stock in a bit, but let's first calculate how much money I made on Suncor stock. So my initial position in Suncor was 171 shares in my personal account at a cost of $4,020 plus 241 shares in my TFSA at a cost of $6,670, which was a total of 408 shares that cost me 10,690 Canadian dollars. And as we can see today, the stock price for SU.TO is sitting around $36 per share, where I've been trimming my position leading up to this level over the past week. So in total, I sold my entire Suncor stock position for 14,192 Canadian dollars, leaving me with a net profit of $3,500, which is a return on investment of about 33%. But this doesn't include all of the dividends I've received from building up and holding this position over the past 2 years. Over the past 2 years, I've received $348.30 in total dividends from these positions in Suncor. So that ends up bringing my total profit to $3,850, or a total return on investment of 36%, which isn't too bad considering I was down over 50% at one point during the pandemic. This just emphasizes the importance of maintaining your conviction in the stocks that you love, not acting emotionally during times of high volatility in the market, and then thirdly, lowering your cost basis when you can through buying the dips in these stocks. But anyways, let's get into my 5 reasons for selling Suncor stock because they might not be what you're expecting. Alright, so the first and main reason why I decided to sell Suncor stock was because of the better opportunities available in the stock market right now. Don't get me wrong, I still love Suncor as a business and I still think they're the best oil and gas stock to own in Canada. In fact, I would also argue Suncor is currently one of Canada's best dividend paying stocks and should see continued growth of the dividend into the near future. But at the end of the day, I'm an investor and I can't be too attached to the businesses that I invest in if there are better opportunities available to me in the market. Recently, we've been seeing a huge sell-off among certain technology stocks as worries of higher interest rates are causing a lot of fear among investors. And specifically, one of the businesses that I've been buying aggressively on the dips is Shopify. Now I know what you're thinking, Nick, you sold Suncor, which is arguably an undervalued business, to buy Shopify, which is trading above a PE ratio of 100 right now? You're insane. And I completely understand, it's totally fair if you have that mentality because I did a few years ago too. But what I've come to realize is that you're always going to have to pay a premium for growth, and if you aren't, then there's something else wrong with the company. As Warren Buffett has said, he would prefer to buy an excellent business at a good price rather than a good business at an excellent price. And that's exactly the way I feel about Shopify. Given the extreme dip we've seen lately where the shares are about 40% off of all-time highs, I believe there is significant upside in this stock over the short term, where analysts see 50% upside over the next 12 months, but I also see big upside over the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, on Tuesday morning, news just came out that Shopify is partnering with JD.com to expand their merchants' presence in China, who will now have access to JD.com's over 500 million customers on their platform. And with Shopify's new presence, US merchants will now be able to start selling products in China within a few weeks, as compared to the typical 12-month period required otherwise. Now, you would have expected the stock to react quite positively on this news because basically the merchants are getting access to 500 million plus new customers, But nope, the stock was down over 6% on the trading day, just showing how irrational the stock market can be. One day I could see Shopify becoming a $1 trillion business or larger, as right now it is the second place competitor next to Amazon in the e-commerce space. As we all know, Amazon is a $1.7 trillion business and will likely become much larger over the coming years, potentially to a $5 trillion business or more one day. So what's to say that Shopify won't at least become 25% the size of Amazon in 10 years' time? Overall, I just believe there's a much larger runway for growth for Shopify when comparing it to Suncor side by side, even when factoring in the valuations. But I've also been buying another stock very aggressively with the proceeds from my Suncor sale, and that is Tesla. You all know I'm absolutely obsessed with Tesla now, and I've made several videos talking about my high conviction in the stock and explaining where I see the stock in 10 years, so I won't get into any of those details in today's video. But I have to say, literally every time I do more research on Tesla stock, it makes me more and more bullish. Just take a look at this chart. In 2021, the adoption of EVs jumped to slightly above 7% worldwide for new vehicle sales, which compares to 2020 having worldwide EV adoption of only 4%. What we're seeing here is exponential growth, not linear like many analysts and investors are predicting will happen. The adoption of any new global scale technology follows an S-curve looking something like this, where in the beginning you see slow growth that might look linear, then there's a period of exponential growth of the technology's adoption, and finally the slowdown in growth after about 80% of the population has adopted the technology. And when it comes to EVs, we're right at the beginning of this S-curve, being at sub 10% adoption, so there's a massive runway of growth ahead, and without question, Tesla is the leader in this industry. So yes, I am betting on the future profits of both Tesla and Shopify because I see massive tidal wave adoption trends coming for both EVs and e-commerce into the future, so I really just want to get in ahead, and I feel that they're at pretty good prices right now. Alright, moving along, the second reason I decided to sell Suncor stock was because I see high oil prices fueling the transition to EVs, pun intended. What you need to understand is the higher the price of oil, the more attractive electric vehicles become. Since EVs aren't at cost parity with ICE vehicles yet, it still costs you more to buy the most affordable EV when compared to a comparable ICE vehicle. But with higher gasoline prices, the cost of fuel in EV becomes significantly more attractive, thus accelerating the transition to EVs. The same principle is applied by governments to carbon taxes. The higher the tax on GHG emissions, the more attractive alternative clean energy sources become. Therefore, what we're seeing right now is insane demand for EVs, significantly outpacing supply, especially for Teslas, and I can only see this happening for years to come, where EVs will continue to grow in adoption. And you have to think, EVs are such a brand new technology that have so many cost improvements to go, so in 5 to 10 years time, they're going to be so much cheaper than ICE vehicles, along with all the technology benefits, so there's going to be no question that people are going to be adopting EVs. Alright, now the third reason I decided to sell Suncor stock is because of the negative long-term outlook for oil. As I've said several times before, Suncor was more of a short-term investment for me, where I was going to hold it during the economic recovery, where oil prices were rising significantly. And since I've seen the stock price rise dramatically with oil prices lately, I've decided to invest this capital into sectors with much better long-term prospects, like the ones I mentioned before. Now here we can see in 2020, 66% of total US petroleum consumption came from the transportation sector, which would include the creation of roads, but also the use of internal combustion engine vehicles. But with the massive EV transition on the horizon and arguably going to be exponential growth, I can't see oil demand increasing by 2030 with transportation taking up this much of its demand. In my opinion, I think the demand outlooks for oil in 2030 are vastly overestimated because people aren't seeing this exponential growth of EV adoption. So I just see minimal long-term growth, if any, from these traditional oil and gas companies. That's because these oil and gas companies are burdened with their massive amounts of debt and huge asset bases to mine oil, while they will need to invest into newer renewable energy technologies to stay relevant in the future. With that being said, I would rather hold investments that I don't need to worry about becoming irrelevant in the next 5 to 10 years. Alright, now the fourth reason I decided to sell Suncor stock was because I'm trying to conserve cash right now and I don't have too much cash available to spend. If I did have more cash to deploy, there would be no reason to sell Suncor stock right away because I do still see some upside over the short term. And so I would have simply purchased these investments with other available cash, but since I'm trying to conserve it right right now, I didn't have that opportunity. And I believe that over the short term, Suncor could still see significant upside, possibly up to $50 per share if oil prices remain high throughout 2022. Not to mention, the dividend was just restored to 2019 levels for Suncor, making this one of the best dividend stocks in Canada right now. But because I do see these better opportunities in Shopify and Tesla over the short and long term right now, I would rather get rid of Suncor and buy into these companies that I have a higher conviction for. Alright, fifth and finally, I decided to sell Suncor stock to lock in some profits because this is the best time of year to sell stocks in my opinion. In my TFSA, I don't need to worry about paying taxes, but in my personal account where I did have Suncor shares, I will have to pay 50% of my income tax rate on the capital gains. However, selling now allows me to avoid paying taxes until April of 2023, which is over a year away right now. Therefore, I can continue investing this amount that I sold from Suncor stock into other better opportunities without having to pay tax for another year. So I personally think it's a smart strategy to tax loss harvest at the end of the calendar year so you can get those benefits right away in terms of your tax return, but then to claim your capital gains at the beginning of the year because then you don't have to pay tax for another year's time. Anyways, that is the end of the video and why I decided to sell Suncor stock. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. I would love to hear them. Even if you disagree with my decision, I would love to hear what you have to say. But anyways, if you haven't already, make sure to smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my future uploads in 2022. And with that said, I will see you all in the next one.